What's up, RotoBallers? Welcome back. Time for some more lineup advice. This time, week 6. Going to give you my must start and sit running backs. And of course, I'm just going to name a couple. Can't go through the whole list, just too many. There's some obvious must starts as always, but this week especially, you're going to have to definitely check injury reports through the weekend up to game time. Some of the biggest names up there, of course, Christian McCaffrey missed the last couple of weeks, Dalvin Cook, and now Nick Chubb nursing some sort of a calf injury. You're really going to have to check to see if these guys are playing or not, and then have somebody available to put in their place. So always have that backup plan ready. But let's talk about some guys that are kind of a fringe, not quite sure if you put them in or not. Always depends on your other options. But let me give you some guys that I think are maybe a little under the radar, and start with a running back that, well, I'm coming around on because I was down on him in draft season, didn't really pick him anywhere, and a little bit down on him to start the season. But now I think some people are underestimating Josh Jacobs of the Raiders. Look, I know the Raiders, that whole situation, kind of a mess. We really don't know what to expect this week and going forward, but you got to assume that offense is basically going to stay the same. The coordinators are the same. Everything's in place except for the head coach. But other than that, look, the personnel, nothing else has changed. It's one guy. So the system will remain the same for the most part going forward. So what has been going on in that run game? It's Josh Jacobs. That's it. End of story. Kenyon Drake was brought in for who knows what reason because they're just not using him. He only had 2 touches last week. No other running back besides Jacobs got a touch except for Kenyon Drake, who had 2 touches. That's it. Jacobs, meanwhile, 19 touches. Back to being the workhorse that we really didn't think he was going to be this year. And that's why I was down on him in draft season, thought he would share time with Drake, thought that maybe he would be relegated to, more of a timeshare role. It's not happening. It's all Jacobs these days. And look, I know he's not the most dynamic runner, but you have to chase the touches and the volume. He's getting it. And I actually like this matchup with Denver, even though Denver, generally speaking, a good defense on run defense, not as stout as through their passing defense lately, but also you have to look at the recent history here with Jacobs. He owns Denver for whatever reason in his 3 games he's played against the Broncos in his career, last couple seasons. He has gotten at least 85 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns in each game. Yeah, every game that he's played the Broncos, he's scored 2 touchdowns. Doesn't mean he's going to do it this week, but I'm just saying you shouldn't be fading him. You should be starting him. Look, especially with bye weeks coming up, there's not a lot of running backs you can just plug in there. And with the injuries that we have, don't forget Saquon Barkley also out. I mean, you need somebody. He is going to be one of the rocks and the foundational pieces as an RB2 if you drafted him. So absolutely keep him in there. So the opposite side here, we have a guy like Myles Gaskin, who everybody hates right now because if you had him, then he did nothing for you for 4 weeks, and then you benched him, or you cut him, or you traded him, and then he just went off. 2 touchdowns, 10 receptions. Just that alone would have been enough. 10 catches, but oh no, he had to score twice too. Look, I get it. I've been there. I had him on a couple of benches as well. Didn't cut him or trade him. You don't go that far early in the season. But look, this defense, I should say this offense of the Dolphins has been worse than their defense. Their defense giving up mad points. The offense just not doing anything. So last week was kind of an aberration. I get that. It was against Tampa Bay, though, one of the best run defenses out there. And it wasn't that he was so effective as a runner. It was what he does. He's a pass catcher, pass catching back, and that kind of guy usually carries the floor. The first 4 weeks, it wasn't happening. But you know what? I have to realize, too, without their starting quarterback, and Jacoby Brissett was fine, but it's still not the same. Tua is coming back this week and also facing the Jaguars. You've got to think that he actually could run the ball, too. The Jaguars being 5th worst run defense in terms of fantasy points allowed to running backs. And it's the Jaguars. We already know that. Good enough to stream against pretty much with anybody. This offense still limited, though, as far as options. They don't have Will Fuller. We don't know about Devontae Parker. And Gaskin is still going to have to be one of the focal points. So roll him out there again. Look, he may not smash like last week, but at the very least, I think his little slump to start the year is over. And then let's talk about Zach Moss. Yet again, didn't think I would be recommending him this often in the season, but it's pretty obvious now. Devin Singletary is taking a backseat, only 6 touches last week. Meanwhile, Zach Moss is carrying more and more of the load. and he's not, again, this guy who's going to rip off 100 yards, on the ground. He's not going to be one of the main pieces of this offense, but it doesn't matter because in Buffalo's offense, you pretty much want any piece you can get. And people say, well, he's a little bit touchdown dependent. Not necessarily. Last week, didn't score, but he still had a decent game based on his pass catching output and rushing yardage. It wasn't a monster game. Look, he was not going to win you a week. He never will do that. But he is still, again, a solid RB2. And in this day and age, that's good enough, right? How many players can you say that about, that you can count on him? He's been consistent because he's gotten at least 12 points in PPR leagues each game he's played. Of course, didn't play week 1, but 4 games in a row, at least 12 points. That is something, and we know he's got the touchdown potential. Going against Tennessee, middle of the pack, run defense, nothing to be scared about. There's a good chance he scores a touchdown again because this defense is giving up 1 rushing touchdown per game. So feel good about Moss. Again, not saying he's going to boom or go off, but look, you can start him. I think he's a must start in this particular climate for running backs. And a couple guys I don't like quite so much. Look, James Conner, kind of like a Zack Moss, except he doesn't catch passes. And, he's very much more game script dependent than Moss. So he's the kind of guy, I get he scored 4 touchdowns the last 3 weeks. There's always a chance for that. But that's all he is getting you. Literally, that is it. He will not catch any passes. That's all Chase Edmonds. So the floor is nothing. And he's not putting up a lot of yards, too. So you have to realize in this game, going against Cleveland, people think there might be a lot of points on the board. Yeah, it's possible, but that doesn't mean Connor's going to get in on the action. Cleveland actually has a pretty good defense compared, to what we've seen on, the scoreboard the first couple of weeks. They did give up a lot of points in some games, but they do have a solid defense. Arizona might score a lot, but again, I think it's going to be through the air mostly. The Cleveland defense is only allowing 3.2 yards per carry, and they've only allowed 2 touchdowns to running backs on the ground this year. Okay, so in Connor, the floor is just really, really low. He's totally touchdown dependent, and like last week, is it going to happen where Rondale Moore catches a pass, appears to score a touchdown, then it gets marked down at the 1-inch line for Connor to run it in the next play? Maybe it'll happen, yeah, sure, but I don't want to, bet my fantasy fortunes on that. So again, you could do better here. At least get somebody with a more favorable matchup or at least a higher ceiling. And then Alex Collins, we just got way too excited about last week. I get it, picking him up. Carson doesn't look like he's going to play yet. Another injured running back you thought you could count on. If Collins is the guy, that's fine. He will get touches, but what is he going to do them? You saw last week, not much. Total yardage was like in the 60s. And now going against Pittsburgh on the road, that is not a recipe for success. Oh, by the way, Russell Wilson is also out. So how effective is this whole offense even going to be? So I don't see Collins being able to get 20-plus touches in this game. And even so, going against a Pittsburgh defense, which hasn't allowed a single rushing touchdown to a running back this year. I don't think Collins will be the first. Look, we know he does have that speed. He could break off a big run, but again, that's just hoping against hope. I mean, you're really throwing a dart here. Maybe you don't have a better option. There's not a better option in Seattle's backfield, I can tell you that. But at this point, really, if you can bench Collins or fade him, I would do so. All right, guys, that's it. My favorite start and sit running backs for week 6. You got any questions, hit me up on Twitter at roto_chef. And, of course, check out RotoBaller all weekend long for our latest rankings constantly updated based on breaking news. All right, good luck.